This tutorial is about creating the first steps to an assembly drawing, and also how to use the mate constraint. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is go to New, and you're going to open up a standard. Now it depends on if you're doing metric or English. Okay, in this case we're using English, and the standard.iam is what we will be using. Okay, so you double click that, and you get your display. Okay. So first thing we have to do is place our parts. So we always have to start with one part that we're going to place first. As we spoke in class, it's essential that this part is what we're building off of. It wants to be one of the larger, the base pieces to this part. Okay. So I'm going to place the constraint, and I'm going to find mine within my library, parts that I've made. It's going to be the base plate in this case. Okay. And then we're going to place it. Now it initially just places it for us if I wanted to, and as I've said, you can place a million of these if you'd like. Again, once you've created one, you have access to as many as you need. So I'm just going to click OK. So I'm going to stick with my one. And I can kind of move it around the screen, but as soon as I place another part, this part does not move. It's locked in place. It's fixed, as you can see over here in our model browser. Base plate 1, there's a pin through it. Okay, if ever you need to, you can change that by unclicking the pin and moving it to another thing. But generally, you do want to have one thing that's set in place that everything else is built off of. Next step, we're going to place a second part. Okay, so we're going to find our bearing. We're going to open that. Move through. Okay, notice how it comes out sideways. It doesn't really matter. It's going to be based on however this was built. Okay. It doesn't matter. I place it, and again, I only need one for this, so I place only one, and I right-click and press OK. Notice now, if I want to, I can rotate this part around. Okay, by clicking in here, position. Okay, this is how we're going to control how we position our parts. I can place it wherever. It doesn't really matter. I will have to have access, though, to the bottom for my first constraint, so I'm going to leave it like this, okay, and just click off of it. Okay, notice how I can move it around too. In this case, I can move this around, or if I want to press F4 as we've done before, I can spin this part. I can move this piece around. It still has tons of it still has all 6 of its degrees of freedom. So what I want to do is place this so that this face here is mated with this face here. It's touching. Okay. So the goal again with assembly constraints is to be thinking in terms of what parts are making contact. What is the relationship between these parts in order for it to be placed in the correct way to get to the desired outcome. And as we've talked about, we have these different types. We've got the mate, we have angle, constraint, tangent, or insert. Now this tutorial will be about mate and how to use a few of the different ways we can use that. So in this case, this first mate assembly constraint we're going to place is between these faces, as I just said. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the bottom of this face. Okay, notice there's an arrow pointing out. That's going to directly relate to these, either the mate or the mate flush. Mate being pointing, the arrows pointing against each other. Mate flush would be the two faces pointing in the same direction. Okay, and I want them pointed against each other, so I'm going to have my other arrow pointing straight up from the top of this face. I do that. Notice that it's just placed it over that part, but ultimately it has not changed a lot. It just now took away 1 degree of freedom, in so much as the part is now face to face. Okay, and it's done what I would have asked. Alright, so the next piece. Another thing that's really cool is that, as we know from before, as we were building these, we have different aspects of the origin. We can also use our origin points, okay, to make these line up. Okay, one major thing that I want to note is that if you click anything after this except apply, you will lose the constraint you just placed. That has placed this in this direction. So I definitely want to hit apply for that. Now let's says, okay, what do you want to do next? Without clicking anything, I'm going to click off of the place constraints for just the time being. I'm going to make my two of my planes visible so we can use them. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to identify the plane that cuts through the middle. Okay, right here. All right, click on this, and so long as you build this so that this is the case, this will work for you. But what you're doing is looking for this connection, this between the planes. All right, I'm going to do the same thing for the origin here. Okay, notice that I want it to be, I want my part, the bearing, to be along this YZ. So I want the coordination of this plane to be matching up, okay, flush with this plane. So we're going to go back in and use our constraints. And this time I'm going to click on flush, and I'm going to choose this plane. Notice how I can click on that. And then I'm going to choose this plane. When I do that, notice how now my part, again apply, my part, okay, I don't want to click on that. Okay, notice how now I can't move my part any farther. It's stuck with the planes matching up. Okay, now the faces, those two bottom faces are lined up, and we have the planes lining up as well. We're going to add one more to make this fit. In this case, I'm just going to slide this out a little bit because I have to be able to get to my holes. So we're going to do this one based on the symmetry of the holes. And again, we want not only those faces to line up, the part to be positioned along the same plane here in this general orientation, but also we need our holes to line up, okay, because we will be placing our cap screws through there at a later point. So I'm going to come in here now and place my constraint, okay. I'm going to choose the center line, so let's zoom in a little bit. I'm going to choose that center line there with that hole. And now notice I went to the bottom. We need that bottom center line to match up with the top of this center line. Okay. And once I've done that, those center lines have now been mated. And that again was a mate type of relationship between those center lines and that face. Okay. And with those, between all those constraints, in order for those all to work out, this part now has 0 degrees of movement. Okay, once I've clicked that, cancel, we now have 0 degrees of movement, and you'll notice that I can't move my part any longer. Okay, it's always a good test. Can you still move the part, and if so, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Did you intend to make it so? Please try this out. It can be frustrating, but keep working on it and practicing. Good luck.